Rukshan Fernando, welcome to Not Your Thoughts. This episode, we're going to be discussing Rukshan's rise to prominence in the independent journalist space. We'll be talking about what Rukshan might look like with your pro-Palestinian hat on. We're going to be discussing my personal critiques of your friend and colleague, Yemini. And we'll go through the Nick Fuentes and America First phenomena and whatever nuggets of meaning and wisdom we might find in between. You ready to go?
I'm ready to go, mate.
Firstly, briefly, I just want to say thank you for making the time today. Thank you for the opportunity you're granting me today. And honestly, thank you for you and Avi's work, the work you're doing, but especially the work for me you did during COVID. There was a time, I think many people can relate, where you guys were the only people we could turn to. When the world was losing its mind, it felt like a tether of sanity watching your live streams and watching you do all the work you were doing and are doing. So genuinely, thank you. Thank you for that. Now, take us on the journey with you. Your rise during COVID, how you maintained momentum, and was there a moment you realized that you are actually shaping the public consciousness?
It's a very interesting question, and I haven't answered that question for probably 3-4 years because I used to get asked that a lot back during that time, and I've reflected on it a lot during the past few years, considering what I went through during that time and the time that I've had to talk to people afterwards as well. Because during the time of COVID, it was literally the people on the street that I was talking to at the protest. It wasn't people who were watching from at home as well. And what's important to say is that it was never planned by me to be there doing what I was doing during that time. A lot of people took up things like cooking. A lot of people took up hobbies during COVID because we had a lot of spare time to spend time at home. And I ended up taking up my camera and heading out onto the streets to cover protests and just fell into that space. And it kind of snowballed from there. So none of it was planned. It just happened as it did happen. And it's really been afterwards that I've kind of realized from speaking to people, some of the impact I've had on people through watching those live streams especially.
Yeah. So were they, because it feels like, was there particular moments where things you said were influencing people's thoughts, or when did it kind of transition from these numbers on a screen to people in real life saying, hey, I think this because you said that or whatnot? When did that kind of interface happen in real life?
Yeah, it happened in real life when the city kind of opened up a little bit more. Melbourne opened up, I think around November 2022, and more people started coming out to the protests. So a lot of the hardcore protesters, the people that were at the rallies, they were coming regardless before that. But a lot of the people who were watching at home, depending on the live streams to understand what was going on, they were more free to come out now and express themselves. So it was when I spoke to those people that I got that idea that, wow, what we've been doing on the streets has been really meaningful for people in Melbourne watching that because they felt voiceless. So it was when the normal, everyday, I'm not saying the people that were at the protests were normal everyday people, but they were committed because there were consequences to going to those protests, right? And even if you felt like you wanted to go outside, a lot of people wouldn't have taken those risks. And it's, again, not to slight them, but, obviously there's consequences, videos of police shooting, protesters with rubber bullets and things like this. Not everyone wants to be involved in that, and that's understandable. So
don't take your rubbish bins out. Remember that at one point as well.
Don't look at the sunset. Don't go out, don't go walking and all this kind of stuff. We were in a crazy, we were obviously one of the most locked down cities in the world. It was intense. So people were really under pressure, staying at home, feeling voiceless and helpless in many ways. It was when those people started coming to the streets and speaking to myself and telling me what the coverage meant to them, that I kind of understood that I've had some sort of impact. It wasn't even so much the numbers, because I was doing some live streams at the Shrine of Remembrance. I remember looking at my count and it's like 70,000 people watching. It didn't really click to me. I thought this was just normal because I've never really understood the space like that.
Right.
So I was just like, oh, those people are watching.
It's Facebook as well.
Yeah, it's Facebook and it's interesting, and it's like people are watching because they're at home. Obviously, there's nothing else to do. But those people that were watching behind the screens at home, it really impacted some of them. And I found that out later on as the years went by when I met people randomly, what that meant to them. But definitely was when people started coming out more freely into the streets.
Because I genuinely feel that. Like, we've just met, but I, in my view, know you. Obviously, I don't know you, but I've formed a parasocial rapport relationship with you.
Yeah.
Because in those moments, and we won't dive too deep into the whole COVID talk, but like, I remember I couldn't even talk to my friends anymore. I couldn't talk to family anymore. Family, like, there was, if you all remember, there was a moment where it's like we forgot about art, we forgot about history, we forgot about music. There was not a single thing in the air that it's like there was nothing else to discuss. So if we were to discuss it, this tension was just about to explode.
Yeah.
So for me, at least, it was those moments and seeing you guys on screen, and I'm like, oh shit, find the others. The others are out there. But yeah, so you say it was organic. Was there a certain moment where Rukshan became like a brand? Was there a moment you started interfacing with the people as, I don't want to use the word fans, but as followers of what you're doing? Did you consciously make that decision?
Yeah, so I think that was more so after there was a big protest that happened and everyone ended up on the Westgate Bridge. And I think that was one of the most viewed kind of coverage that I did. And a lot of people started contacting me afterwards to support me and, send me money and donate and do all these
beautiful.
things. And I was like, oh, there's like a lot of people want to do this. And I understood the controversial aspect of that as well. Because at that moment I was like, oh, people are going to make a lot out of this if I start accepting donations and money. And they're going to be like, oh, it's all, you're doing this all for money and all this kind of stuff. And I remember, that day I went home and I put up on Facebook a big statement like, hey guys, thanks for all the support. Thanks for watching. I'm not doing this for any donations. I don't want any support. Don't send me anything. This is why I'm doing this, because I'm also in the city of Melbourne. I'm going through this as well. And the whole reason that I went out to the street in Melbourne was not necessarily to, become an independent journalist. It was out of my curiosity. And obviously the snowball effect from that. And I was living it too. That's the thing we got to understand about the whole COVID thing. Whether you're a journalist, a politician, or just, everyday bricklayer, whatever it is, we were all going through the same restrictions and the same things. Maybe not the politicians. They had a bit more freedom, let's say.
Yeah, true.
But most of us were going through the same things. So I was living in the city. Like, that was my experience. Like, that what was happening to me as well. So yes, I am the journalist. I'm documenting things and I'm live streaming. But it's also important to me that I'm doing that. So I'm not doing it for an external reason, if that makes sense. I'm doing it for myself as much as everyone else.
Yeah, and I think a part of that, like the appeal there was you seem to have like a, again, I'm not sure your character too much, but like a recluseness or a neutrality. So it felt like this true journalism where you weren't inputting too much of yourself in it, but you were bringing us with you on the journey as well. So for me, at least, again, I'm speaking on my behalf. That was definitely my appeal to Rukshan.
Yeah, I'm actually an introvert. I'm very introvert. I'm not outgoing. That really opened me up to talking to different people. Like, I'm outgoing when I do my professional job and I have to speak with clients and stuff. But personally, I'm introverted. One of the things that I found, this is going to sound bad, but I was frustrated by people coming up to me during my coverage because as someone that's documenting something, I don't want to talk to people on stream. I just want to cover what's happening. And there's people coming up to me saying, thank you this and thank you that. Yeah, I'm like, this is great, but like, I'm not getting the shots that I want to get. And I'm more about the work. Like, that's how I focus because, I do weddings for a living and we are trained pretty much from the start to know that you have to capture the moment.
Yeah.
And even for me at the protest, it's like, you got to capture the moment, Rukshan. Like, you got to get where the police are interacting with the public, something might happen, you got to be there. So, I've found all of that very frustrating at a personal level. But over time, I understood, like going back to your previous question, the desire for people to come up and say thank you or that what it meant to them. So it was that kind of interesting mix for me. So even like today, I would get frustrated when I'm doing certain work and people come to me talking about COVID because I'm like, I'm trying to do this now. I don't want to talk about COVID.
Time and place, bro. Leave it for a podcast or something.
Yeah, leave it for a podcast.
Or at least wait for the camera to be down.
But I'm very grateful for the support. I'm very grateful.
Yeah, I think most people are mature, and I think that landed completely reasonably.
Yeah.
Now, you said it went organically, and I appreciate that, but to what degree was there a strategic element to the growth? Like, all right, people are here. I understand you said you don't want to come off poorly if you're accepting money, even though people are willing to give it to you. Walk me through, if any at all, the strategic element, or did you at least kind of converge it to like, all right, maybe there's a path forward? Did you start to plan? What's the strategic element look like?
Yeah, definitely there's some sort of strategic element that goes into it, even if it's not knowingly that you're doing this. So I accept that. Originally, when I started my page, I was doing more so just like memes, mocking what was happening. I was getting footage from different news shows and splicing it together and showing the differences of what politicians said, a week ago to what they said. Because obviously they're making ridiculous statements.
Yeah.
And just in their own words, you can just watch one thing that they said and the next thing they said the week after, and it all just falls apart, right? So that's what I was doing. And then I was going to the protest, obviously covering the protest. Originally, I was just filming the protest, going back home and putting together an edit and uploading that. Then I added the element of live streaming, which was more not for anyone else, but it was just for my protection, because after a while, it was like, what's going to happen to me as well with the police, right? So live stream was really just a backup in terms of something happens, it's recorded. So if you're talking about intentional things that I've decided to do, which was to continue on doing the live streams, because I realized people were watching those.
Right.
So that's one kind of intentional thing that I did, which was to continue to do live streams each time I went out. Right. And then obviously try to improve those live streams, whether it's quality, because, originally it was just like a portrait, just phone portrait. I went landscape and I got a better phone and I did those kind of upgrades to make the viewing experience better. So, because I realized people were watching, so why not make them, watch something good?
Yeah, and it's almost given you a reason to level up as well.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciated the fact that there were people, looking to that as a source of news. Yeah.
So, yeah, people have granted, organically they've come up to you. There's been this growth. Rukshan's now everyone I know knows you. Everyone I know knows Avi. So, again, I don't want to overblow it, but I would to some degree say household name, at least in Melbourne. Once this has happened, how did you expand, or could you give me some tips on expanding your network? Was there a conscious effort to grow your network? Was there certain moments other than COVID itself where you said, this moment right here, opened a doorway for many other things? Is there moments you can recall that granted more opportunities from a network perspective?
From a network perspective, I think so, because it puts you in certain circles of people where you speak to people that you wouldn't have normally spoken to. So definitely from that aspect, whether it's politicians, whether it's being given access to, to go to Parliament House, for instance, to speak to people, you don't normally get that if you're not involved in the space. So definitely that opened up my world in terms of the things that I could then maybe talk about and discuss with them beyond just COVID, right? So that just happens naturally, and you build those relationships. Obviously, there's a big activist scene in Melbourne, so there's lots of different activist groups as well. So you build those relationships as well. So even though you're doing independent citizen journalism, there is a networking element. You are talking to people. You want to get contacts. You want to know when the next protest is happening. You want to know what they're planning. There is an element of, I wouldn't say it's friendship. It's more so this understanding that you're a journalist. You can come and cover their thing.
Yeah, and it's media. Yeah,
it's media. You need to know where it's happening. You can't just magically know things. So, I built that network up, and obviously, just the confidence that you get from talking to people, and them appreciating your work. It's a source of encouragement. Yeah. A lot of us go into this stuff blindly when we first start, and it's really through that encouragement, feedback, and even from the trolls and the critics that you learn to refine what you're doing. Whether it's good or bad, or how you can improve things. So, I think those things really played a part in expanding my network. But I would say more so the political side of things, the interactions with the politicians and the behind the scenes on a lot of stuff, that opened up a few doors for me later on in life, where I am today, as well as during that time, for sure.
Beautiful. You mentioned, I don't want to use the term haters, but I feel like more recently, there's been people just in the comments being negative. I don't know what that is. It feels new and it feels unnecessary. Has anybody ever given that energy in real life? Have you had negative interactions in real life, or just odd interactions from these people?
Look, I've had negative interactions in real life. Negative interactions in real life is very different to the internet. People are still usually very respectful. Okay. So they'll very, very respectfully tell you, Rukshan, I know who you are. And, they'll kind of give a lecture or scold you a little bit.
I've heard of you.
Yeah. And
you're the guy from the thing.
Yeah. So it's not like the trolls. Because online, people, anonymous, they don't put their face to it. So in real life, you get a lot more positive interactions with people. People that hate you or don't like you for whatever reason are less likely to do that to you in real life. There has been a few instances where that's happened in real life, but it's very minimal. You know,
Yeah.
it's not something of note. There's been people that have yelled at me from cars and things
Oh,
like this. You
right.
know, called me Nazi and white supremacist, things like crazy things. I know do I look like
Obviously.
a white supremacist, guys? It's a bit crazy, right? So that's happened, right? So those things have happened, but it's very rare in the real world. It's more positive, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. I think with these people though, if anyone, just in general, like in my personal life or in this example here, I feel like most of the time people are just needing to connect or they're projecting something internal. So when someone is saying something like that, I try to look past whatever emotion is here and what's like that deeper layer. Not enough that I care about the individual, because I think when people are negative, they almost want you to understand them and to read them, and they're kind of saying, help me almost. So for the most part, for me, I'm just like, you're stuck with you, man. I don't need to deal with that essentially.
Yeah.
So I can imagine you being a public figure. Everyone's just offloading, whether it's their financial stress, their stress with their misses, whatever it is. It's just like project. So yeah, I could see why that would be amplified even harder on the internet. So yeah, just naturally, you've seemed to you fall down the right wing kind of, I don't want to say camp, but personally as well, just on the views that I believe in, I happen to fall down this kind of section.
Yep.
But it is important to always remember and to note, most people are complex. You know, most people, we usually agree with most things with most people. We're usually all mostly on the same page. Now, to open up Pandora's box on the Palestine and Israel situation, could you, put your pro-Palestinian hat on? What intuitions are they getting right? And could you strongman the pro-Palestinian argument?
Yeah, look, I mean, I understand why they do what they do. And to a degree, I believe it's also necessary, what they do as a people, as a group of people, to raise awareness of the plight of their own people. Whether it's, we can discuss about the politics and the war and all these kind of things. But as from a human perspective, I get the need of families or people who are connected to that space to raise awareness of that. And for me, that understanding comes from, in my parents' country, my heritage, Sri Lanka. We had a civil war, 25 years, along similar lines, ethnic, and the Tamil separatist movement. They wanted their own, slice of the country as their own country, pretty much, so separate state, and that went for 25 years, and 250,000 people dead in various ways, and we had those same arguments, the same discussions, and I get it from that human perspective of people fighting for that, because I grew up with friends who were Sinhalese ethnically, and a lot of my friends growing up in Australia were Tamil, and some of their relatives and fathers were in the resistance movement, fighting in the armies, and I didn't. I got that from both sides, so I get it. Like they're just like me. They're people. They might not fully support what's going on, but they're worried about their relatives. So I get it from that human perspective.
Yeah.
Whether that translates over into the actions on the ground here, let's say as protest movement, I don't think they always get it right in that sense.
Right.
So I know I'm jumping a little bit ahead because you're
No,
asking the
that's
strong man there what they're saying, but I don't think they always get it right in that sense, because there is a disconnect between what we are as Australians, what we are as in the West, and how we try to live harmoniously with different communities.
Yeah.
It's complex, right? Everything that we have to go through to live side by side in this multicultural diversity, and there's lots of different arguments against that as well. But that's the state of the country that we're living in. So you have to navigate that as well. And I think they do a poor job of that. And unfortunately, they take a lot of things for granted. The freedoms that we have, yes, it's important to exercise those freedoms, but if you take them for granted, then you will also rub people the wrong way. And I think that's where they've gone wrong in many instances.
So what I'm hearing you say, it is a complicated, because there's so many moving parts to even align the conversation. I guess in terms of the movement itself, because it does get colluded with like Islam and then the left and then fuck colonialism and let's tear down Australia. And I'm like, wait, okay. I agree with I don't like children dying. We can still argue the core reason it's happening, because that's where the argument really is. Everyone agrees children dying bad. What we don't agree on is who's actually causing the conflict of destruction. But yeah, I guess in terms of like the argument for, what I'm hearing you say is it's more like a intuitive. Is it more, or my view at least is it more just like a gut reaction to seeing this destruction on social media, and then is it kind of like a, therefore let's tear down the whole country? I don't see the jump for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is hard to kind of. It's easy to make a pro-Palestinian argument, which is killing children bad. I don't see how people are so strongly pro-Hamas, which I guess can kind of move us into the next part, because I feel like a lot of these arguments, for the most part, throughout, like whether it's the trans, the gay, all the arguments throughout, they almost are this like semantic warfare. We're arguing over definitions. Is it a genocide or is it self-defense? Are Hamas terrorists or are they a resistance? Could you speak on a bit of that? Do you find yourself kind of getting bogged down in the definitional battle as well? And who kind of gets to be the arbiter of truth, of like the moral framework, when this kind of seems to be the battleground that we're having?
Yeah, and it's the battleground everywhere. It's language and everything. So you mentioned trans movement, for instance. It's all about language and how we view those words. So we live in the West where, unfortunately, words, what they're meant, don't mean the same thing anymore. So in that vacuum, you have all these competing interests now defining what these things mean. So yeah, everything's a genocide now. Everything is
Racist now.
everything is racist, right? And again, having seen this in Sri Lanka, I get, towards the end of the war, because the Sri Lankan army actually ended up defeating the terrorist regime, and that's all sorted out. But towards the end of it, same allegations happened: genocide. 40,000 people dead. And again, I'm not excusing that behavior. I'm not saying that didn't happen or anything like this, but that language, especially if you are on the receiving end, if you're the weaker party, words start to matter. Because if you can't fight back through weapons, you can fight back through words and institutions. So that's why it's so important for this movement to define things as a genocide. If you can put that emotive language out there and get the world to accept this, then it's like, well, how can you Westerners allow this genocide to continue? This goes against everything that your ideals of the UN or your country, Australia, the things that the West was built on, the things that we said never again would happen. This goes against all of that. So of course we have to make this into a genocide as the prevailing narrative, because how else can we stop it from happening? They can't stop it militarily.
Right.
There's no other Middle Eastern countries going there to help the Palestinians. They might talk tough, but then no one send any forces to help them. It's just all bravado.
Yeah.
Right. The real thing that's happening there is Israel and the US and the West have the power there, and they're dictating terms. Right. And this should have been over a long time ago. If this is an actual real war and a real genocide, this would have been done a long time ago. But it's gone on for this long because of the complexities of the diplomatic, the way that the world works today.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a complexity of the way the world works, and into that complexity, defining words like genocide, war crimes, things like this become important to the weaker sides, and that's usually what they do. Again, I'm not slighting them for this.
I understand fully.
I'm saying that they're doing this intentionally because it offers relief, whether it's helping terrorists or to help their people or the children not being killed.
Right.
We can argue on those points, but there is an intention behind, framing things in that way.
Yeah, and I've heard the argument that this was almost like a part of the Hamas strategy, was to essentially get the world on their side with
well, they've been effective. I mean,
it's been very effective.
They've been very effective.
Yeah.
And if we look at what's transpired with Australia, France, Canada, the UK recognizing a Palestinian state, for instance, that intention of to recognize.
But sorry to interject, my understanding is that's with the acknowledgement there will be no Hamas.
Yes,
though.
but even for them to make those kind of statements in their official capacities.
Yeah. As a result of a clear terrorist attack on the civilians.
Yes.
As a result of that, to say, all right, we will now reward that. I fully agree and understand that that's not the way it should be playing out. But then, sorry, to kind of not push back, but let's dive in a little more as well. And without it feeling conspiratorial though, this concept of greater Israel, this idea that, because I always try to like, it's so complicated. And to be honest, I'm a bit of a leaf in the wind because I don't really want to commit to a position because I just don't know. It's okay to say I don't know. I don't want to commit to a position, but my kind of moral compass and the safe public position for me is to say, in the modern world, Israel threw the first stone in its expansion. Whether that's right or wrong, my brain just goes, if I fall back on that, that's kind of like a safe intuition to say Israel is the one growing. Is that wrong for me to kind of pin Israel as the aggressor in that sense? How does that land with you?
Yeah, I don't view the world in that same kind of aggressor and that kind of mentality.
The binary of oppressed and aggressor.
Yeah, I don't look at a world because we live in again, I'm going back to complex world. Like Australia, if you talk to people, they'll tell you it's a, colonized. You were talking about before, F the colony, let's get rid of it. It's the same concepts, right? And when it comes to Israel itself, like, okay, greater Israel, let's just say it's a real thing. Like, okay, then stop it from happening. If you can't stop it, then what?
Okay.
I'm not saying I'm not advocating here for greater Israel.
Okay.
I'm saying the Middle East is a complex place. It's a place of conquest.
Yeah.
The Ottoman Empire was there for hundreds, if not thousands, of years, right? And that was a conquest movement.
Yeah.
It conquered a lot of that area, right? If it wasn't for the end of World War II and the realignment of that space, some of those countries don't even exist today, as how we know them. So what are people talking about? Like, what is this thing that people are talking about? The entire Middle East is about conquest.
Yeah.
Right? Asia is about conquest. The Americas, the Spanish Inquisition in the Latin America, it's all conquest.
Yeah.
It's all the expansion of different communities and different countries. And how long you can maintain those countries through defense, through your strength, through infrastructure, strategic partnerships, that's where we get the countries that we have today.
Yeah.
So to just point at Israel and say, oh, only Israel can't, expand. I'm not telling them to expand, by the way. I'm not advocating for this.
Fully understood. Yeah.
Only they can't do it. Or why are they fighting for their country? Or why are they fighting for their land? Why don't they give up their country? Complete nonsense. Why don't the Turkish communities give up to the Kurds, Kurdistan? Why not? Why don't you do it? Same thing in Cypriot. Why don't you do it? Like, why not? We don't do those things because there's certain way the world works.
Yeah.
And if you have the power, if you have the ability, if you can defend your lands, if you can fight for your lands, then whether they're your lands or not, sometimes the borders get reordered.
Yeah.
That's the history of the world. And if you look at right after Israel was established, modern Israel, Egypt, countries around that area, they're going into the 6-day war. They had a chance there, the Middle Eastern countries. They could have taken the place that they wanted to, but they lost. Right? There's winners and victors all the time. You win or you lose. Germany expanded during World War II. They took a few countries. They ended up losing and they retreated back. And the Russians ended up, East Berlin, whatever, West Berlin. You know what I mean? Like,
I hear you. Yeah.
So those things happen.
Yeah.
So when it comes to Israel, as far as I'm, historically I look at those things, and geopolitically we talk about it today. I don't really care personally on a personal level because it's just the way of the world.
Yeah.
I'm worried about protecting Australia more so and protecting the interests of the West, America, UK, for instance. And if they're right now aligned with Israel and we have other issues in the Middle East and it helps having a stable, Middle East and stable Israel and is a part of that discussion, then, we should, in that vein, support that cause.
Yeah, the Western ideology, which is the one we've grown up with and appreciate.
Yeah.
And echoing that sentiment, people need to remember as well, like, chimpanzees go on tribal raids for territory. It is built in our DNA to have this growth and, create a territory and safety net for our community within it. Even Islam, just by nature of it, at its inception, I'm really interested in like religious history. I find Islam, the history of it, interesting. The fact that we can put the word religion and history together. I'm not the most religious personally, but I find it the most interesting thing. It's like any religion, yeah? So Islam's 1,400 years old, and then, or don't quote me, whatever it is, the days are. I always go, what happened on the day before it? And why do we always need like a messiah, an individual human to kind of pass that message on? I think people need to remember as well that we're all expansionist. Islam is expansionist as well. As you said, Israel was, whatever. I don't really fully understand it. So Britain put Israel and there and blah, blah, blah. Yes, the Arabs attacked. and we lost that war. I say we as an Arab. And there's consequences of losing a war when you're kind of in a war. So I fully acknowledge that as well, that there is a bit of like throwing a stone and then going, oh shit, you hit me back. Oh guys, look at them, they hit me back as well. But then the semantics of that becomes arguing over who threw that first stone as well. Yeah, I guess the thing is as well, what I'm trying to grasp is when I'm feeling my pro-Israel hat on, remember, I just kind of fucking, I'm like bi-political, yeah. So when I'm feeling that, I'm kind of like agreeing that, yes, Israel is the face of Western democracy and an ally in that sense. And I also agree that, like, if it wasn't them, like I think people who are like pro-Islam as well, in that sense, is kind of like, you need to acknowledge that, yes, if they had the chance and they did and they went for it, they would be growing as well. So why do we single out Israel only? I want to pivot a bit to Nick Fuentes because I think this part's relevant. Have you been listening to him much? Or not much, but have you acknowledged his kind of rise?
I interact with gropers all the time.
Yeah, okay. All right. So they're everywhere. We're everywhere. Israel. So, but I guess the thing that he opened my eye to, and this was like what made me kind of acknowledge him, is I've always put Israel as, like, as you mentioned earlier, the voice of the West. Not the voice, but like an ally of the West. Yeah. And for the first time, he kind of said America first, meaning he kind of untangled Israel from being this representative of the West. He's almost arguing from a completely different category. What's your opinion on Nick Fuentes? And do you think overall, is he a force for good, or do you think his intention is a bit destructive?
Yeah, I got a few thoughts on Nick, but in terms of Israel and its kind of relationship with America, and this whole America first thing, because that's what this is all about. You know, the rise of people like Nick Fuentes plays into this whole idea of defining what is America first, especially in this new MAGA, world that we live in the US, and seeing that potentially the Republicans could be in power for a lot longer as well under J.D. Vance. So it becomes important to define what America first means.
Yeah, exactly.
So, seeing that it took this conflict in the Middle East to see a lot of these people who have in the past been very anti-Islam or anti-Muslim or anti-terrorist, this kind of, in that vein. Because when you listen to Nick Fuentes, he hates almost everyone equally in some regard. And he's very kind of pro his own version of the world. But, I think more so America probably needs Israel in that region more. I feel like it's more of an American proxy, if anything.
Yeah.
And Israel doesn't view that relationship potentially in the same way. After going to Israel myself personally, I saw it firsthand that they've actually been, the Jewish people, have been fighting this battle of existence for thousands of years. Whether it's the modern battle that fighting today, or whether it's the one going back to when they were fighting the Roman Empire, whatever it is, they've been fighting some sort of persecution, some sort of issue in that region for thousands and thousands of years. And they continue to, fight those battles, whether America exists or Australia exists. I think it's removed from that. But for some reason, whether when it comes to the West, it sees Israel as an ally, naturally, right? A natural ally. The American presidents, going back, for a long time, will always mention their greatest ally, Israel. And I think that's what Nick Fuentes and a lot of these guys are talking against, saying that we can move on from that and away from that. But I don't personally believe that America can. I don't think they want to. And I think it's this projection that somehow America can do without Israel in that region. But I think it's a part of their proxy power play in that region. It's all they have.
Yeah.
They've put some nukes in Turkey and stuff, and they have Turkey in the EU, but they're not really like the same type of ally as Israel. You know what I mean? So it's kind of their it's kind of the whole Westers footprint in the Middle East, right? The Balfour Declaration, after they left that area, I personally don't think the West should have ever left that region. They should have kept some sort of power structure there, because you've seen how it's just disintegrated over time, and it's caused more trouble to the West. I'm just talking about in terms of pure power.
Right.
They had no reason to leave after the end of World War II. They could have kept some sort of presence
at least.
in that area.
Yeah.
Now it's all fallen apart. And it's literally, it impacts all of us around the world. Like we're literally talking about in a podcast in Australia, we're talking about Middle East issues. Nick Fuentes is talking about the Middle East, all this kind of stuff, right? But going back to what you said about Nick Fuentes, how do I see him?
So before we kind of dive into that, because I did want to add, just in terms of like just Israel appearing, because I love the idea, again, I'll just reiterate, of like the Jewish culture from a historical perspective and the lineage it's gone through, like their mysticism as well, and just from the Israelites into Judaism and then the growth of that and then the story of Jesus and the so on and so forth. What I don't understand is like, let's say Israel, let's frame it however you want to frame it, yeah? Let's say this evil monster, this evil enemy appeared, whatever you want. Like, if they are innovating and they are growing and they are sustaining themselves, fully acknowledging that there was like colonialist powers that did actually fund a lot of money into Israel. But if there is something, if the Jews stick to, you know what it is? You know what gets me? It's like, oh, the Jews stick together. Bro, we wish we could stick together. We're fucking too busy fighting each other. We're secretly a bit jealous. I personally think that. I'm personally a bit jealous that like my biggest qualm with Jews is they get to be atheist and Jews. I don't get to do that. I have to give up something or I have to like stick to something else. They get to be atheist and Jews. Or the intellect thing. Who wouldn't be mad about, like, I'm not moving into like a Zionist hat, but like this idea, you know, you can be taller, you may, you know, if there is intellect genetically, sure. I think a lot of it, there's like just a resentment that isn't actually required. And if there is a country that's growing, expanding, innovating, you know, adding so much to science, adding so much to culture as well, why wouldn't you say, hey, what can I learn from this group, this individual? What can I give as well? That's probably too utopian. That's probably too like, we're all happy.
I get where you're coming from. Yeah, I don't see the problem with it. I personally don't see the problem with it. Like people are so obsessed with like their success and their influence and the fact that the people in that country want to be influential, let's say, right? Or want to take part in different societies in other parts of the world. Like what's to hate about that in the way that people hate it so much?
Well, I think it's because without having fully done my research, it's the goyim. It's this idea that like Jewish people think they have a supremacy over other people.
Yeah.
When I've heard it on podcasts, they use the term responsibility, not supremacy. Yeah. So they say they do believe there's like a responsibility to lead in that sense. I think that's when it can break down into a bit of conspiracy.
But it's the same as American nationalism. It's the same as, you know, Indian nationalism. Like all these countries, they have that supremacy within them, whether they know it or not.
Exactly.
It's the same as any Muslim country, Islam. They have that supremacy of belief in who they are as a people.
Right.
The Israelis, the Jews, they have that. The only difference is the West attributes a lot of, you know, when they talk about Judeo-Christian history, to that the Jewish state as well, or to Israel, you know, historical Israel, biblical Israel. So they're interlinked to that. If there was never a Jesus Christ that came from the Jews, then the West's fascination with Israel would be, I think, very different.
Yeah, right.
Historic, I'm just saying how it's built up over time. But because there is this understanding that, you know, there were God's chosen people, that people make, you know, fun of it, because they will be like, oh, you know, this was promised to them thousands of years ago. When like it's like a running joke that people make to diss on Israeli people. But that's just part of that history of that region. And I don't think you can hold people accountable for the words that were written in Scripture.
But I'll push back there. Sorry.
No. I don't think you can hold people accountable for the words that were written in Scripture about them being chosen people and them living out that faith and that belief. And whether they accepted Jesus or not, which is a part of one of the disagreements that a lot of the Western people that don't like Jews have, is that they've, they were responsible for the death of Jesus Christ and things like this. And there's just this lack of understanding of how all of these things came about.
Right.
And it's not necessarily about blaming an individual group of people, the Jews, which is what we do today. We blame them for almost everything, which is wrong.
I feel that. But to push back slightly, it's hard to say that though when you got Netanyahu saying, we are of the light, they are of the dark. Like when his own narrative is this religious narrative. I'd prefer if he played the reality, the fundamental reality of territory and growth, and that we're all on this like every country wants to expand. I fully agree in the supremacy of every individual, but it's hard to hear what you're saying and fully agree when that story is coming from them as the narrative that's being pushed. So that's why a reaction is the memification.
Yeah, I get it. But I was just trying to say, but that is their narrative. Like that is what their legacy and their history is. So of course they're going to pull from that.
Of course, yeah.
So if we had
true.
that same history, we would pull from that. I see this in Indian nationalism all the time. They pull from historic, like when they need to do something in their country, they'll go to history.
Yeah.
They'll go back thousands of years to things that have nothing to do with connected to people today to legitimize some decision that they're making.
Right.
So that is a part of ancient histories. Like today when we talk about things in Australia, we talk about the Anzac legacy to justify the decisions that we make today, whether it's protecting free speech. People will talk back and talk about the Anzacs and what they fought for. It's the same kind of thing for the Jews, but they're talking about biblical history, and sometimes that offends people because it's something that we all share in common, perhaps as Christians mostly around the world. Even Islam, for instance, they all share the same prophets sometimes. So everyone gets offended.
Moses is in it.
Yeah, so everyone's offended because like, how can you just claim it's all about you, light and darkness, like you said? I get that. But again, I just want to push back as well. The West does this all the time when they go fight their wars. They will invoke God.
Yeah,
they'll fight their wars on behalf of God. And that is about light and darkness. And terrorists and the people that they're fighting is always seen as the darkness. And they're the light and they're bringing justice. So it's not uncommon.
Well, it's like baseline human, we as your Rukshan, my name's Bill, we have a narrative, we have a story. The collective starts with an individual. We need to have that story, and then how else are we going to unify a people? Partially or in a major way, probably why our country's falling apart. We've lost our national narrative. We don't have a story anymore. And the story that we do have is that colonialism is this. I mean, yes, there was atrocities, but how dare you say that off your iPhone? Like how dare you say that off the roads we have? I don't know if most people just haven't traveled to see how beautiful of a country and how grateful. Like I would kiss the floor of Australia that we've built, and now these people want to tear it down. And very often it's like virtue signaling. Like, I don't want to say leftist because I have leftist friends, so I don't want to use that term in a derogatory way. But yeah, it kind of takes away from the beauty of the country, and that's kind of people wondering what's going wrong, why the breakdown. It's like you've literally broken down the story that we have. Our national anthem is supposedly offensive now. If you've gone down that mindset, what are you thinking? You think we're going to tear it down and then rebuild it again in a different structure? It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
I don't understand it. I guess in saying that, that was a digression.
Yep.
So continue a little more in terms of, I do have some thoughts of my own, but just your experience with Nick Fuentes, the phenomena.
Yeah, look, I think he's a very effective communicator in his own style. And he's speaking for a group of people, especially young white men, who feel disenfranchised, who feel not heard, and who see their countries changing in front of their eyes. And that's all thanks to the political elite and institutions that have obviously pushed back against the things that you were just talking about: national identity, things that unify a country, aspirational things that people usually had, especially in countries like you have to understand, America is a very aspirational country. In a short amount of time, in a couple of 100 years, to rise to the point that it's risen as the ultimate superpower, as a country where we get a lot of the things that we talk about from like American culture, couple of 100 years they've managed to do that. And we're talking about countries in the Middle East, thousands of years of history, great histories, fighting amongst themselves still can't build things, right? They're struggling, the people are suffering. So they're aspirational people that have built great things, and they're seeing, the world is changing around them, and they're not really sure how to react to it. And I think Nick Fuentes taps into a lot of that. I don't agree with him. I think he's, personally, I think some of his views are very abhorrent. He's praising of like Hitler, Stalin, obviously.
Can I?
Yep.
Does he praise them though? Because that feels like those arguments don't land for me at all.
Not in praising, but his acceptance of them as being cool people or good people. They're not cool people.
I don't think he's saying that either. I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
I think you have to acknowledge he's saying, and I watched this recently, he was justifying this position. He was saying, I'm not saying they're good people from a moral perspective.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
I'm saying they're great from a volume perspective. Great in the sense of they did lead their countries out of whatever rut it was in. But then, yes, he does kind of leave aside the millions dead. And
Yeah,
kind of, he kind of
look,
slips
this is
that
the
a bit
thing
there.
with him. If you can say that Hitler is good for doing that, then what's wrong with Netanyahu? What's the complaint about Netanyahu? That's the thing here. But these guys make these moral differences. They will run around saying, "Oh, Netanyahu is the incarnate of evil, but Hitler is cool."
Right.
It doesn't make sense.
Okay.
So that's where they fall apart because they pick and choose. And this whole Hitler thing, this whole Hitler phenomenon, is because people like to be edgy. They like to be like, "Oh yeah, Hitler's cool." Like this is like, "Oh, we should just do what Hitler did," and then our problems would go away. And it's not just about Jews. We're talking about in general, just the way that the whole Aryan, the myth of like the greatness of the country and pushing that forward. There are elements of that, yes, which he talks about nation building and wanting to have a great country, like make America great again. The Democrats would say that's very Hitler-esque. That's what they were saying. They're calling Trump Hitler.
Yeah, right.
So there is this truth to this thing where you just can't say everything is Hitler, but then there's also a part where you cross a line and you become, you have to know the difference between those two things, like where you cross that line. And if your whole message to the youth now, especially because he's going after the youth, that's his audience that he wants, is that you have to look at Hitler, or you have to look at the things that where Hitler did things or whatever. You're in a losing battle
Right.
in today's space, I think.
And he also, what I really don't like about him is his cop-out ability. His claims like that, but then I'm just joking. These oldies can't take a joke. Oh my God. It's like, no, you have to commit to a position.
Commit to the position.
Yeah, and at least like die on that hill. But he is the most I've seen get just constant get out of jail free cards whenever he wants.
Yeah.
And I really don't appreciate that about him.
Yeah. I mean, look, I see them as, I know we talk about them a lot, and again, that goes to the fact that they're very effective. I do see someone like Nick Fuentes and a few others as more so entertainers. We in America, they give a lot of prominence to that because they move certain conversations into the limelight.
Yeah.
Obviously, controversial topics become speaking points online these days on social media, and they're the ones that spark discussion in whatever it leads to. So he does that role very effectively, and right now he's a talking point. Right, it was like a few years ago people were talking about Andrew Tate.
Yes, exactly.
Same kind of phenomena.
It's like the masculine.
The main thing right now is Nick Fuentes and the kind of like this MAGA civil war about the future of American politics when it comes to this particular topic. But I think deep down it is the existence of Nick Fuentes is really a part of this whole, I'm not trying to be racist here, but there's this whole aspect that I feel as well, like a lot of young white men are losing their identities. They don't know who they really are in their countries. They're seeing, a lot of people like me come to Australia, for instance, or America. And, we're very much a part of the country as well. And, people get offended when I say I'm Australian because they're like, Rukshan, you're not Australian, right? So, especially some young white men, they'll get offended saying you can never be Australian. So there is this very crisis, I believe, that white people are going through in the West, right? And they blame all types of people for it. And the most recent person that's very good at blaming people is Nick Fuentes.
Right.
So he's the guy that's identifying all the people that did the wrong things. So he can find the issues, he can blame people, but he doesn't really come up with solutions.
Yeah.
Or the solutions that he does come up with are like a bit wacky, like borderline, bit crazy. The things questionable things that I don't want to repeat on here. The solutions that he comes up with and the denigrating way that he talks about different races or different people, things like this, which aren't really effective. And I think he's selling those young white men, especially, a lie. Because I don't believe that is where the world is actually heading.
Right.
So when people are talking about mass deportations of people like me from Australia or America, they hate, for instance, they hate Vivek Ramaswamy. The Gropers hate him because he said that, white people, white kids, they're not studying as hard as, the Asian kids, for instance,
right.
the Indian kids or the Chinese kids. And he's talking about statistically, or he's showing that there's a different focus in those ethnic kids that are growing up in America or in Australia. And he's just talking about like anyone else should talk about education, like he's showing the differences. Like we could be better if we focused more on education, for instance. But because he brought up race and he did the cardinal sin of saying that these other races are doing better than the white race at the moment.
The audacity.
That's it.
Yeah.
He has to be deported. He has to be sent back. So they can't have these conversations anymore. It has to be about white as the top thing. Like they're at the top of the pecking chain.
It's funny enough that like he claims far right, but also very openly says his whole shtick is identity politics.
Yeah, it's all identity,
which is literally on the left.
Yeah.
And he pushes back on the this idea that because isn't in again limited understanding, but the whole constitution. The point is, yes, it's Christian-based values, but the idea is, as Ramaswamy says, it's a melting pot of ideas. It's not meant to be about like an individual group. The idea is that, yes, you can have a brown or white country as long as we have these Western values. It's not based on your skin color. It's based on the ideas of Western values.
Yeah. But what the Gropers will say to that is it was written by white Christian men
Okay.
or white people.
Yeah.
And we specifically singled out black people as being separate during that time.
Right.
That's kind of the argument that they make. But I think one of the greatest exports of the West has been, and people in the Middle East might disagree with this, democracy or Christian values or Western ideas, Western values. And I think it's made a tremendous difference to the world. And the fact that we do have societies which have these ideas of inclusion, where people like you and me from different backgrounds living in Australia can converse like this and have this great country that we both call home, I think it's an amazing accomplishment of the West. And I think they're giving up on those ideas right now because they're not sure how to manage those ideas. Those ideas have grown too big. That's why we talk about multiculturalism today as being a problem, because the idea itself is actually like not a bad idea per se if it worked in an ideal world. But our world is not ideal, and people can take advantage of those type of concepts where we have mass immigration, where it's uncontrolled. That's the problem. Not multiculturalism itself as an idea, but mass immigration, no assimilation at all, then you have issues. Right. So the ideas that the West has come up with are great. Of course, they're flawed, but they've allowed freedom, innovation. They've allowed people to, do things like what Elon Musk is doing, for instance, with SpaceX and planning to go to Mars. That's all a part of the innovation of the West, right? The thousands and thousands of years, and if not in the last couple of 100 years. So those are things that should be celebrated, but it's kind of regressing now. Look, people like Nick Fuentes are pushing back against that, saying that it's only white people, right? It's only the whites. He's kind of changed his tune a little bit now. He's become a bit
diplomatic,
more He's become a bit more mainstream, and he's changed his tone. He's changed his tune a little bit, and he said that anyone born in America, anyone that's got citizenship is an American. He said something like that recently, which the Gropers weren't too happy about his own people. So when the reality hits, right, that America is different today. There is Vivek Ramaswamy's, right? Usha Vance, the wife of the vice president of the United States of America, J.D. Vance, she's an Indian. The two children that Vance has, they're Indian, half Indian, sorry.
Of course,
And one of their kids' name is called Vivek.
Okay.
So once you come to the realization that the world is a little bit different now, I think we've got to move beyond skin color and race. It's about ideology. And I think the conservatives and the right has always been about fighting for ideology, fighting for the values of those ideologies with conservatism, for instance. And Nick Fuentes and these other groups that are like him or other individuals, they're trying to make it, like you said, like left, identity politics. It's about skin color. It's about these things. And it's like, guys, it's a losing battle.
Yeah.
You're losing. Those guys are going to come to the next election. You got, what's that guy in New York, Mandani?
Oh, don't get me going.
That classic example.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
So everyone's running around saying, oh, white power, white this, white that. They just elected a Muslim mayor in New York.
Yeah.
So the world is changing. I'm not saying it's a good thing, like that's great. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's a bad thing either.
It is a bad thing. I'll say it for you, bro.
I personally think it's a bad thing because of his politics, not because he's a Muslim.
Obviously, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. The communism element.
Yeah, the communism element. That's what I'm trying to get to, because people are saying on the left and the right, it's bad because he's a Muslim.
He's not even Muslim. Like, he's hardly even Muslim.
Yeah, they're saying, first Muslim mayor, whatever.
Yeah.
They're saying because he's a Muslim. It's not because of that. Sadiq Khan in London is not a bad mayor per se because he's just a Muslim, but his ideology, which is a part of some of that, yes, but it's more, you know, infused with this kind of left-wing mentality, right?
Yeah.
Which is the worst combination you can have, right?
Yeah.
So that's the things that I'm against. So, but what I mentioned about Mandani is like, despite all of this noise online, in the real world, things are changing, and you have to be prepared for that. And I believe Nick Fuentes is leading his sheep, which is these young white men, especially, astray,
Right.
because they're going to keep seeing the world change in front of them, and they're going to become more and more disenfranchised and more disconnected with the world. And it's going to be, unfortunately, like there's going to be brown people that are going to be, you know, leaders in their countries. We had Rishi Sunak in the UK. He was an Indian dude, right? Heritage.
Right. Yeah.
Prime Minister of the UK. These things are going to happen in America and Australia. And like we have to accept that things have changed a little bit, and we have to start fighting for different things. And that's against bad ideas,
Right.
bad ideologies, right? So as someone from the conservative right and, you know, the right wing, whatever, that's what I fight for. I don't really look at skin color or religion.
We do need you, Rukshan, to play your skin card way harder though.
Nah,
we need you to be honest.
I don't like the whole skin card thing. I don't believe in that. I mean, I cop a lot of racism online, obviously.
Right.
And it's the strangest type of racism. I'm not going off on a tangent here.
No, that's fine.
But it's the weirdest type of racism because people hate me for loving Australia as a brown person. Like that's the right hates me because I say that I'm a proud Australian.
Right. Yeah.
That's the problem with the right. So you want people to assimilate, but when they have assimilated, you hate them as well because they've assimilated. You know what I mean? Like it's like, what do you want? And the left, right? I'm going to say this again, not to offend anyone, but the immigrants in these countries in the West, the immigrants are in control because they understand the issues that these white people are having, these white groups are having. They get that and they play off that. So when we have all these neo-Nazi stuff in Melbourne, I know people in you know, migrant what do you call them, like community groups and things like this, leaders, right? So I've obviously I'm in different communities. They love it because they fundraise off it. They get more power from the government, right? They play the victim card. I'm talking about because they're left-wing ideology. They play the victim card. Everyone comes to them. Everyone says sorry to them, and they get more power. Right. So it works towards this kind of takeover that we're seeing from the left-wing ideological point of view. So I think people have to be awake to that you know, just talking tough online and calling people jeets, you know, putting up racist remarks against Indians and saying that they stink and all. Yeah, it might sound cool online and you might get a lot of likes and people might be interacting with you online, but in the real world, they don't care.
Yeah.
They're actually taking real world power. And that's where the battle is. That's where the real battle is because it's the battle of ideas. And that's why I support people like Vivek Ramaswamy because he's not talking about his race. He's not talking about his skin color. He talks about the ideals of America and conservatism and why fighting for those things are important. And we need people like him to push these immigrants who might be more tempted by the victimhood status of the left to come over to that side.
Yeah.
You know, because that's the group that we need to get engaged in politics. Because they're the ones who are default voting for bad ideas. Because these other people with the good ideas, they're racist, don't vote for them. Vote for our bad ideas. You get more money. We'll give you more welfare.
You have to do less.
You have to do less. And we're not racist to you. We love you guys.
Yeah.
We just think you're victims, but we love you guys. Vote for us. And people are voting for them because it just makes more sense. Like, why would you vote for the people that hate you? So that's the, going back to Nick Fuentes. So he's playing with a very dangerous game in the US where he's turning, you know, a lot of migrant communities against conservatism. And you're seeing that play out in small parts. And I think New York is one example, but New York's always been a bit cookie. But there's other areas as well. I think that will play out if they go too hard on this whole, you know, white supremacy race thing that they're doing. It just I don't think it works out in the real world.
Yeah. But with the New York thing, it's also, I think there's just so much like cost of living and this and that. There's this like extreme new thing. People like, this must be the thing that gets us out of it. As little sense as it makes, like taxing the white people more, like literal open discrimination. Mamdani going, I don't need your money. And a couple of days ago, he's like, hey guys, can I have your money again, please? Like shamelessly talking about doubling the tax or tripling the tax or whatever it was. But I did just want to add before we close off on Nick Fuentes, I think where he does not win out though, but where he's winning the majority is it's obviously like a Fuentes Ben Shapiro battle at the moment. These two leaders of these certain thoughts. We spoke about semantics. Where Fuentes wins the semantic battle is he's subverted in the party to say, if you cannot say America first, then you are not America first. And if you cannot say that, he almost forces people to say his brand name, which I think is fucking genius. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because now Ben Shapiro has to say, no, I am America first. Oh, you support Nick Fuentes. And it's like, if he doesn't, it's like, so you're Israel first? It's like, no, it's not. And then Fuentes will be like, Ben Shapiro said he only has allegiance to the US because of Israel, or, to that effect.
Yeah.
And like with that same breath as well, it's also like he kind of wins people over slightly when the whole thing of the right has always been free speech and, Christian values and this and that. But then you do have these stories and Nick Fuentes going on, all these podcasts saying they were actively suppressing me for the last 10 years. Ben Shapiro has been actively suppressing me for the last 10 years. Are you up to date with like the Heritage Foundation shenanigans?
Yep.
So quick summary, Tucker has, that's fine. Tucker has Tucker interviews Fuentes, the Heritage Foundation, which is a think tank. It's basically for young conservatives to, go in there and essentially it kind of creates the ideologies of the Republic. He doesn't disavow them. And then basically, there are groups and sponsors that say you need to apologize. He apologizes and then he gets dropped anyway. It's hard to argue the Fuentes argument when he's saying we're now the free speech party and the right wing has always been the free speech party. And Ben Shapiro is like oddly silent about the whole thing. He canceled his interview with Patrick Bet-David after he found out Fuentes was on. So in that sense, Ben Shapiro, if you're listening, but like it really does feel like, all right, the right was the free speech group, and that's what I identified as the right, the Western value free speech. It doesn't feel like that anymore. I haven't moved. The goalpost has shifted, and it's like, oh shit, am I a grouper now? Where do I land anymore if my fundamental value was free speech, and it doesn't feel like Ben Shapiro is reflecting that anymore?
Yeah.
I'll leave that in the air for you. Does that land?
Yeah, look, I think this is a great point that you're bringing up in the discussion of free speech, because it's something we talk about a lot in Australia as well when it comes to censorship that we have here. I broadly think that, and I used to think I was a free speech like absolutist, and in some ways I still am, but I think when it comes to free speech is more around, especially when it, content creators and podcasters and news and things like this, it's stopping the government from, or the government stopping someone from having a voice, for instance. If you as a private company or an individual don't want to platform someone, I don't think that's a free speech issue. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to associate with some particular group, it's not a free speech issue. If you don't want to, as a foundation, for instance, platform someone, it's not a free speech issue. I think you can make those choices. So whether you can be called out on it for sure, you can be criticized for it, but I don't think it goes into this whole free speech thing, because that's what a lot of these neo-Nazi groups say. They're like, oh, it's just free speech. Yeah, well, you can say stupid things you want to say, but we don't have to associate with you. We don't have to platform you, right? Sometimes these neo-Nazi groups in Melbourne, they're like, oh, Rukshan, why won't you interview, the leader, whatever, right? They're always messaging me, debate him. I'm like, why? Why do I want to debate him? I know what he was going to say. I know his ideas. I don't care. Yeah. I don't want to debate him. If you know what I'm saying? So I'm not denying him anything. Yeah. But they will say, oh, what about free speech? What happened to free speech? I don't have to listen to his free speech. Yeah. He can have his free speech if he wants to. So I think to criticize people for not platforming individuals is probably doesn't fit the gambit of what we would consider as free speech.
Yeah, and as a country as well, like to the person who would disagree with you, how would you distinguish between, having your cultural narrative, your national narrative? What if there is a foreign entity that is trying to, propagate a new idea to destroy your country within? So as a country, are you meant to just allow every single thought in? No, as a country, would that be your response person who disagrees? Like, yep, just let it all happen. No, you got to be able to have a degree of control, essentially, to kind of, not fully control, but not allow a foreign entity to propagate a thought.
It goes back to what we were talking about. Like one of the the great ideas of this is free speech is a great idea of the West again. It's a great Western idea, really. because a lot of other places don't have this idea of free speech that we have, that we exercise, right? There's certain things I wouldn't say, even in Sri Lanka, for instance. So you can, but there's consequences. Parts of the Middle East, you kind of know if you kind of tiptoe around the wrong areas, a white van might turn up. You disappear.
Yeah.
Like there's,
Whoops. Yeah.
there's consequences, right? And people will be like, well, in our countries, in Australia and America, there is consequences as well, right? But more broadly than that, we do have this idea of free speech as an ideal, but it does introduce problems into that country. So, so as great as free speech is, you can have foreign influence infiltrate that.
Yeah.
So you can have these different ideas now come into the mix. You can have, money exchanged hands in the background, in the shadows, for people to say things. You can have election interference. That's all a package of free speech. So with that, like you said, there has to be some sort of controls as well. There has to be limits. And I think the battle is always on the extent of those limits.
Yeah.
So whether it's not platforming people, I don't think that crosses that line. Whether Ben Shapiro is like, okay, I'm going to boycott Patrick Bet-Davidson because he had Nick Fuentes. Again, that's a slight on Ben Shapiro. Like people can criticize him for that. And I think he'll cop criticism for that. But it's not free speech thing.
Of course. It's just more just a an observation that you
like they're essentially what they're saying is there's gatekeepers. I think that's what Nick Fuentes is saying. There's gatekeepers around what conservatism in America is, what America First is, and he's been excluded from that for a long time. And now he's got his voice out there, right? So now, and as much as he says that, he does get a lot of play. He does get a lot of airtime. But people talk about his ideas. It's just sometimes they're not great ideas.
Yeah.
Right? They're not taken on board. Again, I think he's going to keep being an effective communicator in this space, especially as there is a lot more internet freedom in America right now. He couldn't do what he was doing under Joe Biden or the previous administrations. Like it was a lot more restrictive in terms of how people discuss things online. So that it's all a part of that new freedom that we've got under President Trump.
Or the brother Elon.
Yeah. Platforms like X. I think X is really, I looked at X as being when it kind of opened up as a great thing. And I still think it's a great thing, but it also allowed these other voices more prominence, which is, again, I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with seeing the glorification videos of Hitler and whatever they put online. Like there's all this kind of nonsense. What did they do? They translate Hitler into English with AI. Whatever.
I tried to say something 4 times.
Yeah, it's his historical speech. I don't have a problem. I don't want to censor those things. Like that's the part of our world. People should be able to see those things. I don't believe that stuff should be hidden. But if people don't want to associate with it, that's completely fine. And if people want to say, we don't want Nazism, we reject that, we fought against that, that's not who we are as a people, that's just how it is, right? If you think that you can win the culture war, win the culture war. Nick Fuentes right now thinks he's winning some culture war. Maybe he will. Maybe he will. But I think, what will happen is sense will prevail when it comes closer to the crunch time, when it comes closer to elections.
Yeah.
The message of Nick Fuentes is not unifying.
Yeah.
It does not win elections. Message of Charlie Kirk is unifying. That wins elections. That can get more people on. It's a broad church. Nick Fuentes is not a broad church. I'm excluded from Nick Fuentes' world.
Yeah, right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Understood, yeah.
Even if I agree with some of the sentiment of the things that he's saying, I'm excluded from that by default. So he's preaching to either people who are already part of the choir or people that are disenfranchised. Any kind of person that's lived a real world, like proper life existence with different ethnicities and different groups of people will know that they're okay people, right?
Or you're tier 2. Yeah. As he believes he's tier 2 to Jews, which is the worst thing in the world. Yeah. So, it's like, literally wanting his cake and eating it too.
Exactly. So, that's just how I view it. I think, there's a few other people that I can probably mention, like a Candace Owens and stuff, who are kind of in that similar makeup in terms of becoming more so entertainers. Yeah. As much as they do political commentary. And they verge on going into a lot more conspiratorial type narrative.
Well, they found a niche. They found a void.
It's a niche. Yeah. And mainstream legacy media is dead. So let's not kid ourselves. It's dead. Podcasts, things like what you're doing, that's where things, even the average person is more curious about that. And I think Candace Fuentes appeals to that group of people. They might not necessarily be engaged in the political conversation like we are. But they'll get there. They'll listen to Nick Fuentes and be like, "Oh yeah, like what he's saying sounds right.
Yeah, like there is a problem.
Yeah,
He's diagnosing
he's
a problem.
diagnosed a
Yeah,
problem.
yeah,
Yes, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
again, I've said all these things, and I'm
Yeah.
not dismissing the issues that white Americans or white Australians are facing in their countries. I think it's actually real. I think the victim, way that white people are blamed for things, the way that their history, the way that Christianity is attacked, I think it's all wrong and abhorrent, and it's happening more and more. But what they don't seem to understand is happening from an ideological point. It's not happening like, man, I went to like Sri Lanka recently, and even in India, I've been there before, and they actually look after their British monuments.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They like not revere them, but they respect them, and it's a part of their history. And they look after them, and it's like they know who these people are. They look after the old thing that's been built. What do we do here? We tear down the statues, right, of our history,
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, the colonialists. But you go to the previous British colonies, a lot of them still respect and look after, and they speak English. So like they have managed to live in that world and create something for themselves, right? As not imperfect as it is, it's fine. But in the West, we are fighting against ourselves.
Yeah.
We're
It's a
fighting
sign
against-
of the privilege and
yeah,
the removed
we're
we
so
are.
removed. We
Yeah.
have, it sounds crazy, but we have too much freedom.
Yeah,
too
agreed.
much free speech.
Yeah, I'm gonna chop it off because I'm like don't know what to do for my life.
I don't want to top it off. That's the imperfect of it. That's how we get to where we are today.
Yeah,
in the West.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We've reached self-actualization to the point where we almost need to create problems to kind of.
We have too much. And again, I would pick anywhere in the world to be. I would be in Australia. Right. I've been to other parts of the world, and I know I'd be in Australia, I'd be in America, I'd be in the West. Because as imperfect as things are, as problematic as things are, like whatever's happened to get to where we are in these countries, we're blessed.
Yeah, man.
So I truly believe that. I truly know that, and I get it. I see that the white people that built a lot of these countries, they see that as well, more so maybe than us, because there's that ancestral legacy that they have.
Well, they're almost, I don't want to say losing it because I'm an Aussie.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm losing it.
Yeah, so we're losing it.
Yeah.
So we're losing it.
Yeah.
For them, it's even worse. But then I think, okay, then I kind of understand from the Aboriginal perspective the things that they're saying about their history.
Yeah.
And I get all of those things, and I think, okay, cool, that's all great. But right now, where would you rather be living here?
Yeah, exactly.
We're living in Australia, because as even if we had our own, like Aboriginals had their own land, whatever, this is great. Australia is great as a country, I'm saying. Like,
Yeah, the roads are awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, there's indigenous countries in the other parts of the world where people have indigenous countries. It's not great. Like, they've messed things up.
Yeah.
Whatever we've done to get to this point here in countries like Australia, we're blessed. We're so lucky. So, I think we should be protecting that and building whatever that is into the future.
That's a powerful message. And it's one of unification. I want to segue into my critique of your friend and colleague and someone who I follow, Avi Yemini. Because I view you almost as like the almost order and chaos. I see you as a lot more, as I mentioned, introvert, recluse, neutrality, calmness. When Avi speaks or when I'm watching his content, the words himself, the words he says himself, I don't usually disagree with. For the most part, I'm like, yeah, I hear it, I see it. But I can't help but feel he chooses engagement and he chooses like a reaction from the left as a more important value than to truly unify Australia. Is there any merit to kind of this observation? You have insight, you're very close friends. Do you think he truly values Australia coming together, or is there a bit of like an individual drive to kind of get that engagement, have the name blow up and see him kind of, he is Avi Yemini. It's a powerful name. Candace Owens talking about him. Like, it's insane. Yeah.
I mean, Avi will proudly say that he's a narcissist himself.
Okay,
So he has no
cool.
shame. He'll say he's a narcissist. Take that how you will. If you read his book, he's very much about himself.
He has a book, sorry.
He has a book, yeah.
Apologies, yeah.
Rebel from the Start, Avi Yemini has a book, and he's one of 17 children. So you can understand that, in that household, wanting to get attention is pretty much, when you're one of 17 kids, it would just come natural.
Bro's got to eat, man.
Yeah, he's got to eat. So he's always probably been trying to get attention, right? So he will proudly say these things. But what I've understood about the work of Avi Yemini is, you're saying about unifying with the left. It's pretty hard to unify with the left here in Australia, especially in Melbourne, where he mainly works. And in terms of street interviews, what I've discovered from doing this kind of work is, and he's really effective at it and good at it, is that when you're talking to people, ordinary people on the street, it's not like you're talking to me. I do this, I go on live streams, we can have a conversation. Most people, they need to be either directed to what you're trying to tell them to talk about, or you need to spark something in them to have that conversation. A lot of people don't want to engage on camera, right? So does become a bit I wouldn't say engagement baiting, but it does become, you're asking almost like leading questions, or you're trying to trigger them in a way. It appears like that.
You're pulling on the threads.
You're pulling on
essentially.
threads. Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it, because you want those conversations. You want them to say what they really think. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a style that's of journalism that's also needed. There's a space for that.
Okay.
And I think he knows that that's what he's doing when he's doing those street style interviews in the on protests and stuff like this. Where I've really seen him shine is, for instance, when he's at Davos at the World Economic Forum. Now, then we have a different dynamic. It's no longer your average Joe on the street that's a lefty, yelling about climate change.
Right.
It's Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer or whatever he is, or it's some Tedros from the UN, right? So they're intellectual people, and they're the people that independent journalists, people especially journalists on the right, are usually not able to get interviews with, not talk to.
Right.
And putting that style of street journalism to them, again, people love that as well, because that's what people want to really put those questions to them, because they never get asked those questions in the real world. So I think he's really effective and good at doing those kind of interviews, and it's more serious interviews. It's just that for the type of the way the world works, it's less likely for people like us in this conservative space, for instance, to get that kind of interview or those discussions. We're more so having to go in there, use the time effectively in a way to get the most out of that interview is what I'm saying. So it's almost like not ambush interviews, but you're almost always trying to get the most out of people as quickly as possible.
That makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Do you think people have ever left a conversation with him or yourself, but Avi for this topic, and actually change their mind, or do they kind of reflexively, emotionally double down? Because that's really my concern is whether he's right or wrong. Even I don't know, most people in my life have a negative inclination towards him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I personally don't feel that, and I get why.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what's triggered this thought is I'm like, bro, I know you have good intentions, but how can I convince people, or how can he convince a broader audience that the intentions are good?
Yeah. I think I saw him, we were at the World Economic Forum in Davos, I think in 2023, and he confronted Nas Daily, because Nas Daily was there as a part of the WEF thing and whatever, he was doing his thing, and had a bit of a, confrontation back and forth, and, they both made videos about it afterwards.
Oh, right.
Right. But then later on,
content.
Later on, Nas Daily actually invited him for a debate, and they had a debate, right? And then over time, on certain things, they've become more amicable on those views, between those two people. So if you're saying if you can change people's views and minds, I don't know, but I think if you actually speak to him or kind of understand where he's coming from, you can have a respectful relationship for sure. He's very headstrong in his views, as you know. He's very kind of pro-Israel as well.
Yeah.
In his defense of his people and his nation. So, he's very open about those things. So his views are very much out there to the public. So I don't understand this complaint that people make about him. He's trying to deceive people. He's trying to trick them. He's who he says he is. There's no hidden things about it. That's probably why people don't like him.
True.
Because they know exactly who he is.
Yeah,
right?
That's a really good point.
And I prefer that more than hearing from the reporter or the journalist that doesn't really express who they are or make it clear who they are, their intentions are. And then later on they'll, badmouth you, have a bad opinion, but to your face or something, they won't do that, if that makes sense. I think it makes more sense for him to be upfront and put his views out there in person.
Unapologetic.
Unapologetic, challenge people. That's his style.
Yeah.
That's his style. I don't think there's a one size fits all for journalism or for podcasts or things like this. I don't think that works. I think everyone's going to be a little bit individualistic and different.
Well, these days, authenticity is what's selling.
Authenticity, yeah. He's who he is. People hate watch him. I know that.
Yeah.
Right. People hate watch him, and people hate watch me, and it's kind of part of it. And whether you're trying to convince them or not, I don't think it really matters. And where I really noticed this was on
watch.
yeah, like
That's
I
so
had
crazy.
you were talking about COVID at the start.
Mm.
A lot of people followed me during that time during COVID,
Mm.
and now when I'm talking about things like Israel, Palestine, those same people they hate me.
I think that's what's happening. It's like,
So people want, if you want to follow people that you just agree with all the time, yeah, that's great. Like you can do that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you're kind of living in an echo chamber. Like that's not the world. That's not reality. I follow a lot of people that I don't agree with. So
Exactly.
I follow, I watch Fuentes' podcast. I don't agree with anything he's saying, but I watch him because it's like, I'm not hate watching,
Yeah.
but I understand. I want to consume that because I want to know what he's saying.
Mm.
So there's this kind of desire to meld people into who you want them to be ideally. It's not realistic.
And it's a sign of the fragility of your own ideas.
I think so.
Yeah, because if you can't handle a chink in the armor of your own ideas, it's like, how can you truly believe it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. Hate watching that Lance stuff. That's a hilarious. I can't imagine that.
I love I love the trolls, man. I love the hate watchers.
I just can't process it. You know, like I've definitely been a bit envious, but I've never I love if I ever feel envy, I kind of love turning that into a positive feeling. But I've never and yeah, you do get hate watchers. I see that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's fucking hilarious that people can genuinely. The only thing really we have in this life is like our attention, our conscious attention in existence. And these people are choosing to use that in a way that negatively charges them.
Yeah.
And put that into the world.
Yeah. I've spoken
Bro.
I've spoken to a few of them, and they say I've actually had serious discussions with a few of them in private because they message me in private as well, and I message back to most people, and they're just like, oh no, I still like you, but I just want you to know. So that's why they're commenting.
Right.
I want you to know I'm disappointed. I want you to know that you can change your ways. I've had people message me, Rukshan, blink twice during the podcast if Israel's paying you and we'll come save you.
Bro, I want this 7K, bro.
7K is good, guys.
This is why this interview's set. I'm trying
7K is good. 7K is good. That's why I'm here today. I've been given 7K.
I'm trying to get the 7K. No one's letting me in.
I'll hook you up. I'll hook you up, man. Yeah, so that kind of thing, right? So it's all kind of it's a crazy space.
Right.
It's a crazy space. People don't understand that because I did one thing during COVID, that as an individual, I have certain views and values.
Complexity,
and
yeah.
I'm very open about them. So for me, it's not about people not liking me because I'm not supporting, Palestine the way that they want me to support Palestine. Like I'm just that's not how your expectation of journalism should be. I'm saying the views that I'm saying that I believe in.
Yeah, right.
Whether people like me or not. And for people like, oh, Rukshan, you're losing so many followers. You should change your tune. I'm like, what do you want me to say something just to keep following? Like, is that what this is about? Is this what you think this is?
Yeah.
And I think there is a tendency for people to be audience captured now, because the podcast space, the online social media space is very, it's all monetized.
Right, yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of money that's flowing in that space. So eyeballs, engagement equals money. So people do tend to fall into audience capture. And I think the great thing about Avi is, going back to Avi, is that he hasn't fallen into that.
Yeah.
He's got his own views. He's got his views, and people don't like him for it, and he continues with it. Whether it gets likes or follows or not doesn't matter. And I respect that about him. And there's a lot of people that do that still, but I think many people have gone down the path of being captured by audience capture.
Right.
And are making content or making shows purely for the clicks and the likes.
Yeah.
There's a euphoric feeling that you do get from that, and to take yourself away from that, it takes a lot of effort.
Right.
And I've worked on that a lot, so I really don't care anymore. I just say what I want to say.
Well, you're never going to please everyone anyway.
I realized that.
Yeah,
man. So, I learned about it during COVID. Like a lot of people, like in my bubble, it's like everyone supported me, and you step into the real world, it's like, no, they didn't. Everyone supported you.
You just happen to align in that moment.
At that moment, you aligned, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of those people don't like me anymore because of my views now, and that's just the reality. And it goes from issue to issue. So, things ebb and flow in this space, and you just got to be ready to deal with that.
Well, you're the same Rukshan. You're just no longer the Rukshan they projected onto you.
Exactly.
And then their version or their framework, because that's every relationship, whether it's friends, family. I love the idea that everyone has a different version of you in their head.
Yes.
And that's on a personal level as well.
Yeah.
So now project that, expand that, extrapolate that outwards. And it's like, wait, you're not you're not everything I thought you were through the
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah.
What?
What, you're
You're a human being?
you're a Zionist?
You're a Zionist?
Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. No, thank you for yeah, I guess stringing that together so eloquently. Thank you. And again, man, thank you. Like the obvious stark difference in our algorithms. I appreciate like the humility, and you're just chill. You're just chatting. You're completely fine. Just coming and having a chat. So thank you so much for your time. Honestly,
No, that's okay,
I don't know how else to say that. I really appreciate that. What's the solution, man? Fix the world, bro. Fix the world right here on this podcast. How can we pragmatically kind of move forward as a human race, as a collective, left, right? What do we do, man?
Yeah. I don't think there's any kind of fixing the world type thing that we can do, really, honestly, right? That's the
Dang flabbit.
That's the truth. There isn't. But as a collective people, we can make differences, definitely. And I think we've been doing that. Yes, things are really bad in the world, but they're a lot better than what they used to be. For us anyway, in our countries, and we need to maintain that, maintain our standard of living. They're the things that we fight for.
Right.
So things do keep improving. Like technology plays a massive part in it. We are living in one of the greatest times ever technologically. We are so privileged to be doing what we're doing. The fact that we can, reach people's audiences through doing something like this, through social media apps, whatever, unheard of
And
10, 20 years ago.
And we're like golden enough that it's so like advanced, but just pre enough that it's not AI overlord yet.
Yes.
Like I think people need to acknowledge like today, right now, this like moment that you are watching this is like, I can't imagine a more golden present moment right now.
I don't know. Maybe Game Boys and VCRs.
True.
And Blockbuster.
Sorry, lifespan. Yeah.
I think just before Netflix became a thing, I think that was when the golden age was, really. For those of us who grew up in the 90s and 2000s.
Okay, point
but
made.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it's true. We are in this, this very small window of time where things are really drastically about to change with the AI and things like this. So our whole world collectively is going to change for us as humans, and it's how we as a group of people decide to, step into that future. And I think there are ways that we can obviously find common ground as people. I don't believe in this world where as someone who's from the right or conservative, I don't want everyone to think like me. We need to have a left.
Yeah.
we need to have the left wing. We need to have the centrists. It is a combination and the accumulation of all these ideas and the great battles that we have politically as dialogues that actually changes the world forward.
Yeah.
Right. So it's that middle ground that we usually can find, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, just the mind itself. Is it the corpus callosum, the central part that actually that connects the brains? That actually does more to like inhibit the hemispheres from affecting each other. Because the way the hemispheres work, I'm not acting like I know. I read one book.
Okay.
Ian McGilchrist, amazing guy. But he emphasizes that the tension between the hemispheres is what actually aligns them.
Yes.
And an example he gave is like, if you use your hand and you want to move it like this, try do it as stable as you can. You could do that. But to achieve true stability, if you add a tension, that's when it's actually like stable. So it's kind of literally the way we process information. The tension between two parties is kind of what creates a synthesis almost, where something can emerge from it.
So
I love that idea. Yeah,
I agree with you. And I think that the battle of ideas is great. The political battles that we have are great. We just have to find common ground on major things.
Yeah.
The way we move forward. And I think one of those is, I don't want to get too deep into this, like things like climate. The way that we're talking about the transformative changes that are happening in our world when it comes to this issue is going to affect all of us. I'm not advocating for climate change policies and things like this. I'm saying that discussion in itself is transformative for our generation. AI is another one of those things that's transformative for the next generation that's coming for our future. The way that we deal with our, I think, religious identities, the foundational identities of these countries, where we stand on that, I think is important as well. We do need to have an aspect of understanding who we are as a people and the relationship that has in terms of, in a multicultural society, multi-faith society, what that looks like. I think we need to have those conversations. Like they definitely need to happen. And I have seen, obviously, more recently that there's been a lot more of people expressing themselves faithfully in terms of their beliefs. Again, how far that goes, I don't know, because there is an element of that which seems superficial and artificial.
Right.
That is not like long lasting. This whole new Christ is King movement,
Yeah, it's very outward.
performative.
Yeah,
It seems very
performative, yeah.
performative. And I'm not Christian. I'm like a devout Christian, and I believe in those things, but I'm not a performative Christian as such. But a part of the Christian message is to spread the word.
Yeah, right.
And to kind of share that with everyone else as well. So it's that balancing act that we're going into the future. But I believe that has a strong part to play going into the future, because the future is, what we don't understand. This robotic AI future where everything's kind of happens automatically.
Yeah.
We're moving further and further away from who we are as people. Our roots, what we understand of ourselves as individuals. Without trying to get too deep.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
It does.
We're moving further and further away from who we are as a human species. When we're talking about things like genetically or modifying people, cloning. I saw recently a pet was cloned.
Okay.
They're cloning pets now. They're bringing back, extinct animals. This company in America. So, technology, these advances that we're making, is making us feel like we are maybe invincible as well, as bad as the world is. So, they're things that we have to contend with. Or we can only do that as a collective if we find some common ground.
I do fully agree that, I think the importance of religion. So I don't personally believe in like an authority, or I don't necessarily believe the fundamental foundation of the universe has a intrinsic moral value. So from that sense, I don't believe I'm religious, but I do believe things kind of happen for a reason or whatnot. But fully for the story of religion, the communal element of religion, I think that's incredibly important. And as you alluded to, losing that a bit is kind of where a lot of the breakdown happens.
Yeah, I mean, the younger generations, they don't really, you don't have religious identity, you don't have national identity.
You can't be a man.
Yeah. So what identity do younger kids have?
Yeah.
Like what is feeling that identity? And if the family structures are also broken,
yeah, true.
What do the kids that are growing up have? Like, I feel very fortunate to have grown up in the time that I did, in the 90s and the 2000s, because we didn't have those external influences, right? We had some sort of grounding in something, whatever that is, doesn't matter.
Well, at the least, like, there wasn't like just completely fragmented reality, and like all these individual bubbles, and we at the very least were living in the same world. Now we talk past each other in a way that's like, it is literally, and I mean it literally, like different realities. We're already in these internal simulations on our algorithms.
Yeah, one thing I noticed when I went to Israel and I was in Jerusalem was that the people there were still engaged. They were still alive in like that country, and like everyone was like talking to each other.
Right.
It was like it was happening. It was alive. When I come back to Australia, you don't really get that same sense of community. So I feel like the Middle Eastern countries, the Asian countries, and those kind of ancient places that have all these problems that we talked about, they still have that sense of community and identity.
Right.
But we've lost that here in the West. We've had it for a while, and people might blame the migrants. I get it, mass immigration and stuff. But even during that time, I think we had it in the 90s and 2000s. But today, we've really lost it. Like, we don't know who we are as Australians. We don't know who we are as people. Like, I know, but I'm saying as a collective, we don't really know. And that's the problem. That's the problem going, because bad actors can fill that void. And that's what I'm worried about. So, and the bad actors could be anyone. So it's not necessarily one group of people. Could be anyone. And that's what I worry about.
I guess importantly, maintaining discussion, maintaining conversation, maintaining civility with each other. And just holding these kind of core values. Rukshan Fernando, thank you, man. Thank you so much.
All good.
The work you've done, the work you're doing. I hope this is goodbye for now. And I hope to cross paths in the future, man. So, I'll catch you at maybe the next rally or something.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on.